Hi and welcome back to Tech Talk. This week is National Apprenticeships Week. So as such, I thought it'd be good to have a chat with a few of the people involved in the university's technical apprenticeship programme. So we'll start with Laura, who is the technical apprenticeship coordinator for the university. Hi Laura, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your career so far, please?
Sure. So I studied science coming straight from school in a local college. One of my tutors at school was a female physics teacher, really passionate about the subject. Everything she did was sort of stepping out the box and a bit crazy and really relatable actually, and it gave me a sense of enjoyment in the subject itself. So from that, it sparked passion for science. So I further went into study then at a college again to do science, applied science. From that, I did a HNC and I gained a post in the Health Protection Agency, which is it's a pathology lab, so testing samples that come from doctors and hospitals and things like that. After that, I moved into a technical role at a local college. And part of that role then sort of escalated into assessment, so becoming what was an MVQ assessor and moving into the internal quality assurance of apprenticeships and bits around that. So that's where my passion come from for apprenticeships.
So can you just tell us how many apprentices we've got at the moment, the structure of the programme and how it works?
The programme started in 2013. Predominantly it was set up to design our own, grow your own talent, so to speak. So we were engaging or trying to engage with the local community, trying to target around Greater Manchester and sort of the local areas, offering people a foot into a career through an apprenticeship model. It was based on bringing in young people and creating those opportunities and sort of establishing in a network with those that might not apply for jobs at the university. And it was driven by our commitment to technical skills and development. So the majority of apprentices, once they finish an apprenticeship, apply for jobs, as anybody does. And they will step then into sort of junior roles, whereas people that might be recruited from externally might go into higher positions. So since 2013, we've had around 50 plus apprentices come through the programme. 24 of those are in substantive posts across the university. So although the apprenticeship sits within FSE, it's pan-university, so we have rotations into humanities, we have large rotations into FBMH, so there's a great community of technical staff that all contribute in one way or another. At the moment, we've got 18 apprentices on programme, so they're varying levels from level 2 all the way up to degree apprenticeships. And in addition to that, over the past year, we've had 17 staff members take on an apprenticeship. So that's doing the normal role and then studying as well to sort of gain a recognised qualification.
So you've said the apprentices rotate around different work areas. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it makes our apprenticeship scheme different to others and the amount of work the technical staff in those areas put in?
The technical community across of all the faculties have been a great asset to the programme and the apprentices' career development themselves. So most apprenticeships are conducted in one environment from start to finish, and they basically become competent in just one area. As a programme, we thought it was better for apprentices to come in and see the scope of the university, what the technical community gets involved with, what different areas there is, the diversity of skills that can be learned. So our apprentices rotate roughly anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So we've got places in chemistry teaching, mass spectrometry, we've got areas in FBMH such as histology, humanities, we've got geography. So they pick up skills not only just in teaching areas, but in research as well. We've got some research rotations and in the institutes as well, such as National Graphene Institute and MIB as well. So the technical staff in those areas liaise closely with myself and Colin, and we'll arrange for them to have guidance about what the apprentice does within that area. And initially there's training to be done there. And then once that training then takes hold and the apprentice picks those skills up, they become part of that team and sort of take up some of that work from that technician that releases them to do other parts of work. But I mean, the technical side and the support that we get from what we refer to as local line managers, so those people housing those apprentices, has been really conducive to how the programme's gone and how well it will continue to go.
So I've been involved in the apprenticeship scheme since it started now, in one way or another. Can you tell us about the changes that have happened recently in apprenticeships that tailor the courses more towards what we need as a university?
Apprenticeships originally were sat on what was called a framework. So frameworks were created mostly by colleges and educational environments such as that. They would then decide the format of how that apprenticeship was structured. So that was an academic element at whichever level. And then they would then have to do what was called a National Vocational Qualification, or an NVQ, as most people know it. The NVQs were less favoured by employers because some of the criteria, so the bits of evidence that the apprentice would have to meet, they were very much not aligned to how industry was changing, how sectors were changing. So they were a bit outdated and not quite as relevant. So in 2015, the government announced massive reform and changes to apprenticeships across the whole of the UK. So they switched off framework, so they stopped anybody signed up onto a framework and introduced something called a standard. So there's probably over 250 plus standards now available. And what those standards are now, they've been designed by employers. So there's trailblazer groups that sat in like little areas like AstraZeneca and BAE and all those sort of environments for different specialisms. And what they did was thought, right, okay, what do we want from someone coming through the door? What skills, knowledge and behaviours should they have ready for employment? So they designed these standards, picked out the knowledge elements they thought would be relevant, the skills that they should learn during apprenticeship, and what behaviours they wanted from an apprentice by the end of their actual apprenticeship. So they were created by employers for employers. So the predominant setup is what we call KSBs. So the knowledge element for the K is the academic study that they do. So in some instances, this is a BTEC, it could be a degree, it could be a level 2 qualification. So the academic bit is the knowledge-based bits that they'd learn. So that's delivered in a variety of models. So it could be day release, where they go to college 1 day a week, remote study, so that's where they do it all online, or a blended approach, which we've moved to ourselves as well in some areas, where you do some online learning and you do some in-house, should we say, learning, so in your university or in your college. The skills elements are competence-based, so that's where the apprentice has to evidence what they've learned, what they're capable of. And in science areas, obviously, you know, it's using maintenance of equipment, calibration, running experiments, analysing data. Whereas in sort of workshop models, it's being able to use milling machines, lathes, CNC, so all the skills that you sort of need from someone in that working environment. The behaviours elements in the standards basically align to you know, things, the softer skills that you look for in an employee, so well-driven, looks continual professional development, can communicate well, there's even elements of presenting and things that sort of make that rounded individual as an employee. So that's the format for the KSBs. Originally, NVQs would be signed off by an assessor. So not somebody in the workplace, somebody that says, yes, we've seen them do it and we're happy and they've completed their apprenticeship. So that process has now changed as well. So there's something called an endpoint assessment. So you yourself been through this now with the new apprentices, or the apprentices that have gone through an endpoint assessment. And what happens is you have a designated staff member who becomes a registered endpoint assessor. So they get a few hours of training to show how the standard works, what it is that you'd be looking for. And then you'll do something called a synoptic assessment test. So it's basically an observation of that apprentice carrying out elements of health and safety, practical work, maintenance, paper documentation or electronic, all the elements that surround the job role basically. So the registered endpoint assessor would be from within the university because they understand ways of working, our policies, anything to do with the job role. And then the endpoint assessor and the registered assessor would sit and then decide what elements the apprentice has met and if they've passed or failed or not. They also do a case study, so it's like a small exam where they get given a scenario and they'll then have to answer questions, and it's based around knowledge elements, and that again is a pass or a fail. And then they do a vocational competence discussion. So that's a set of around 25 questions where they get asked about health and safety, processes, communication links, and that's graded as a pass, fail or distinction depending on what level that they give through. So there's massive changes to the way apprenticeships have worked prior, and they hope now that the quality of those apprenticeships should drive to a higher standard.
Okay, so now we're going to have a quick chat with Sam, who is currently on the apprenticeship scheme. Sam, if you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experiences so far.
Hi, my name's Sam. I've been an apprentice at the University of Manchester since 2018, where I started on a level 3 2-year apprenticeship programme. During this time, I was going to college and completing a level 3 BTEC in applied science, and I was also rotating around different lab environments and in terms of the day-to-day job. So I started in the chemistry teaching labs with Mike, which was absolutely amazing. It gave me insight into the fundamentals of the lab in terms of equipment, safety, and also the whole student experience. From there, I moved after about 3 or 4 months to the geography labs for about 6 months, which was brilliant. It was a completely different environment. It was more geochemical based, lots of geographic kind of techniques, for example. And this was great. I got the opportunity to go to Crete on a field trip abroad with some second year students, which was absolutely amazing. I also got to go Blue Dot Festival and help out on a PhD project that involved digital mapping. So you can see it's kind of lots of different areas get covered in different rotation placements. And that's like a great benefit because the scope of what we learn and what we do is so large. From geography, after 6 months, I went to the National Graphene Institute for a 6-month placement. That was brilliant as well. It was very different, mainly focused on materials and composites involving graphene, of course, this new cutting edge smart material. So that was really, really interesting. It was less chemistry based, but it was still really kind of a really interesting environment to work in, seeing all this like cool, you know, graphene products and stuff and all the research that was being carried out. They also had the clean rooms, which was really interesting. You know, you kind of have to gown up and put on these clean suits to make sure that you didn't get any dust or hair in the labs because the air's ultra pure. And after the National Graphene Institute, I moved to the mass spectrometry department in the chemistry building. Now this was more like focused on mainly chemistry, you know, analytical chemistry methods using mass spectrometers, gas chromatograph equipment, HPLC, all sorts of that. So that was more kind of equipment and analytically focused, which was really helpful when it came to starting my degree apprenticeship, which I'm halfway through my first year of the degree apprenticeship in chemical science. So all of these placements up to this point have really helped me in my studies and in terms of academia, because I'm getting, you know, I'm learning about so much in so many different areas, which is really beneficial when it comes to, you know, studying the material and theory. Yeah, so I was there for about 1 or 2 months in mass spectrometry until the whole pandemic, and then since then I've been helping back out in chemistry teaching to get the lab ready for the students, and then very recently moved back to geography to help out around here.
So I know that at the end of the first lockdown, you had to go through your endpoint assessment for the first part of your apprenticeship. Can you tell us how that was and what happened?
Of course, yeah. So the endpoint assessment, it was essentially me completing that first stage of this apprenticeship. Well, completing the entire apprenticeship, if you like, but the first stage in terms of it was before I could go on to the degree program. So I had to finish the level 3 first. And it was really exciting. It was challenging, but really exciting because I couldn't wait to, you know, have that completed. Because that's then like a successful 2 years, getting the apprenticeship done and then moving forward onto the degree. So yeah, I found it really, it was challenging. There was a vocational competence discussion where we had to talk about lots of things like regulations, the university environment, like many aspects of like kind of practical scientific techniques, things like that. I had to also do an observation, which was a back titration, where I was kind of thinking, whilst I was carrying out the titration, I was thinking of improvements to make for the method, as if it was quality control or something like that. So that was a lot of fun, kind of doing that and kind of feeling like I was in control of my own experiment for the first time, which was really cool. Yeah, so I was really happy to have done the EPA.
Brilliant. You sound like you've really enjoyed your time at the university so far. Just before we go, can you tell us a little bit about your hopes for the future, and do you see yourself hopefully getting a permanent job here one day?
Yeah, so that would be absolutely fantastic. I'd love to work here. Obviously, the plan for the next few years, well, the next three and a half years, I'd say, is to finish this degree apprenticeship, hopefully get a great mark, and then my aspiration is to become a full-time technician, full employed technician, and then even after that, hopefully a senior technician. But I'd absolutely love to stay working at the university. Yeah, I absolutely love it here. It's just so engaging, stimulating. The staff are amazing. Every placement's just there's just so many great staff members basically that make the learning experience so much more enjoyable as well.